satisfaction, pleasure and strength. Welcome essence, beauty, presence, time, spirit, form and space. Welcome excellence and every blessing, sacred in praise. What I seek, I have. What I wanna know, I understand. All I wish I could, I can. Who I wanna be, I am. What I seek, I have. What I wanna know, I understand. All I wish I could, I understand. Who I wanna be, I am. Welcome magic and wonder, brilliance and grace. Welcome joy, satisfaction, pleasure and strength. Welcome essence, beauty, presence, time, spirit, form and space. Welcome excellence and every blessing, sacred in praise. What I see, I have. What I wanna know, I understand. All I wish I could, I am. What I wanna be, I am. What I see, I have. What I wanna know, I understand. All I wish I could, I understand. Who I wanna be, I am. I am the seed, I am the tree, I am the flower, I am the bee. I am fire and I'm wind. I accept love and also I give. I am loud and I am mighty. I am silent, I treat it lightly. I am brave and monumental. I am modest, I am gentle. I am student and I'm teacher. I am the sand and I am the beach. I am means and I am power. I am the bridge and I am tower. I am peace and I am wild. I am mother, I am child. I am many, I am few. I am God and God is you. What I seek, I have. What I wanna know, I understand. All I wish I could, I can. Who I wanna be, I am. I am. I am. Who I wish to be, I am.
Hello, my beautiful people. This is Lama Bodhi Kokyu. I am grateful to be here with you with Holy Ground Spiritual Center. Today, I will be speaking or talking from the theme of suffering. So, part of the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism is the cause of suffering, or suffering. And I want to speak about that because much of what I've been reading recently and even hearing talks has centered around the focus of positivity. And it's not something that I desire to dismiss or even neglect. I think it has its place. And there is something about our own suffering that in some ways is present or in the proximity of our lives that I want to speak about. And I want to speak about it from the context of lessons. What can we learn from suffering? From our own suffering. I haven't met an individual yet that hasn't experienced some form of suffering in their lives. And as I think about the reality that all of us live in at this moment, where there's constantly mass shootings. I just read of one recently. I can't remember the location. If I'm not mistaken, it was in Chicago. And there's been shootings in churches and grocery stores. And there's health issues, climate change. There's ways in which we all have and will continue to be impacted by the realities in which we find ourselves moving through and moving within. And I'm just wondering, and I'm constantly reflecting on what can we learn from these experiences, a pandemic. And as we speak, if I could be vulnerable for a moment, my father is transitioning, is dying. And so there's a way in which I am doing my best to be present with this experience with a man that I physically look exactly like, and I don't know. My father was absent most of my childhood. And so these various questions about the ways in which I am responsible for the lack of relationship are coming up at this moment. There's many questions about and even feelings of upset, sadness, of the missed opportunities that both of us had and that we will never have again that are coming up. And so connected to that is some form of suffering that I'm allowing to kind of flow through my body at this moment. And so what's coming up right now as a lesson from suffering, about suffering or with suffering, is the ways in which we are often unable to let go of the stories and the ideas in which we tell ourselves over and over again. Could I have done this? Could I possibly have made a different decision? The upset and the anger around what you think other individuals are supposed to do. And how I'm connecting this to my own kind of visceral experience in this moment is it feels like the only place that I've been able to have some kind of healing concerning myself primarily, and then my relationship with my father, has been being able to simply see him as a human being, not surrounded by these ideas of what I assume a father, a human being is supposed to be. My father could only simply be himself. One of the last conversations that me and him had together that I am often reflecting on in my journaling, and sometimes it comes up in my meditations. And my father was in the hospital and has been in a nursing home for some time now. And he looked me straight in my eyes. And he said, after some discussion, that I couldn't have been anything else. I could only be myself. And at the moment, there was a shock of anger that flew through me, which was a judgment, which has nothing to do with him and everything to do with me. Because that judgment was about who I thought he was supposed to be in my life. The kind of responsibility that I hold as a father. I was projecting that onto my father in that moment. When in fact, he was clearly telling me that he could not have been that. And so I'm sharing this and I'm trying not to go too deep into my own personal reflection, which I feel like I already have. But I'm sharing it because there is something about our own suffering that we create ourselves. We constantly grab onto stories and cling onto them in a way that places other individuals in boxes and doesn't allow them to breathe. It doesn't allow them space to be human and stumble and fall and even love their own stumble and falling. Allow space for them to choose for themselves without my assumptions and bias. Let them themselves choose who they want to be in this life. In the moment that I cling on to my own stories, my own ideas, and not give others space to claim themselves for themselves, I believe I am feeding into the suffering that already exists in the world. And part of my commitment as a Buddhist is to do my own work so that I can alleviate suffering when I can. These kind of projections that we thrust on under other individuals are so tied to many of the various forms of oppression in the world: white supremacy, sexism, classism, all of these various forms of isms, these phobias, transphobia, queerphobia, all of these different forms of divisions and oppressions that exist in the world, and we have to pay attention to, are tied to our own assumptions and projections, which cultivate room for suffering to exist, to grow like a bacteria, like a virus. And I wasn't planning on sharing what I'm kind of moving through right now on a personal level, but it feels very important to share as we sit with this concept of suffering. I've been in some very deep conversations with my younger brother recently, and we often find ourselves talking about relationships and how to cultivate relationships, healthy relationships, and the ways in which we have to take responsibility for the ways in which we we create our own suffering and perpetuate suffering for others, and particularly those in which we love. And it's been a hard conversation because a major part of what we've been talking about is, what does it mean? Or what does it look like and feel like for love to be bound to acceptance? And I speak of love because I think to even begin to talk about alleviating suffering, we have to talk about love. And love to me is bound to acceptance. To love someone as they are, without any pushing or pulling, without any manipulation. Because all of the pushing and pulling creates suffering. The manipulation creates suffering. So what does it mean to accept yourself as you are and look at someone else and fall in love with them as they are, even if they get on your damn nerves? Is it possible? And what does it look like as we talk about racism, sexism? To disagree with people's actions and activities in the way in which it impacts our bodies in unhealthy ways, but to fall in love with another individual or other individuals in such a way that we can begin to create space for healthy conversation, for healthy relationships. And these relationships that I'm speaking of that help alleviate suffering require some very deep decisions. At least for myself, the decision could be that I need you to get the fuck away from me. I may not necessarily say it that way. And I may also say it that way. But it requires decisions on my behalf so that healthy relating can be possible. Because even if we're not physically in proximity, that doesn't mean that we're not relating. That doesn't mean that I don't need other human beings. We are bound to each other, even if we're disgusted with each other. I could live on the other side of the United States, and whoever lives on the East Coast or the West Coast, I am still connected to them in some form. And if you ask me how, we can simply look at climate change. We can simply look at gas prices. We can simply look at the ways in which our bodies take up space on land that is stolen, in the air that we breathe. We are bound to each other. And if we constantly ignore that truth, we will continue to cultivate space for suffering. So again, I'm back at this thinking about love. To love someone isn't necessarily an activity in the ways in which people think of activity. Love may be also deeply bound to nothingness. Or in Buddhism, I think the word is more often used, emptiness. Because there's many ways in which I assume and have assumed that there's something I'm supposed to do to prove that I love someone. When in fact, it may be more true that love has more to do with the ways in which I just hold space, lend my ear, lend my body if it's desired, lend my voice when necessary. And that requires a connection to emptiness or nothingness, meaning I don't have to do anything. Love is just present. Love just is. Many times the way that we think about love, meaning that we have to do something, that I have to act, actually creates more suffering. And I'm thinking about some of my, past relationships, romantic relationships at that. And part of the ways in which I was taught that I'm supposed to be a man was that I'm supposed to do something. I have to protect. I have to use my body to fix shit. And I remember one of my partners, actually the mother of my son, saying to me, I don't need you to do a damn thing. I can take care of myself. I just want you to be present for me. And at the time, I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. But the more and more I have sat with that statement in itself, and the more and more I've been present to raising my own son and like cultivating healthy relationships with others, with those that I love in my friendships and family. Like, if I'm loved, and if I love, that oftentimes is enough. Because I'm accepted. And I accept you when you come to me. And that's actually the closest that I've ever gotten to what does it mean to alleviate suffering. In December of this year, and it feels odd because I'll be 37 this year. But in December, it'll be 30 years since my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, died in a tragic car accident. And if you do subtraction, I was going on 7. Well, yeah, I would have been 7 when my grandmother died. And still, she has been a primary force in my life. And I want to share why. And I hope this will help us kind of process how I'm trying to talk about suffering and love. My grandmother was my safe haven. And her death shifted the trajectory of my life. Not quite clear how. But what I know is fact is her lap and her presence was the place that I knew I was home, that I was safe, that I could simply be. And so every single moment in my life where I felt like I was alone and that no one loved me or no one cared about me, one of my safe havens was that I could always close my eyes and imagine myself in the presence of my grandmother. And so I would often and have often closed my eyes and smelled snuff, because my grandmother was a snuff user. And if you don't know what snuff is, please look it up. It's a country thing. If you don't understand, look it up. But she was my safe place. And so I have leaned on the way that she made me feel seen and loved as a meditation practice, as a way of surviving, as a way of thriving my entire life. I'm thinking about when I was in the Navy and when I was in school, decided to go to college, and after the military, and those times where I just didn't feel like I had it, I could simply close my eyes and I knew for a fact that I had everything that I needed right in my body. And since I know that feeling, what it means to really be free, part of my practice as a Buddhist has been to practice constantly over and over, even as I failed, to first teach myself how to accept me as is. No need to add anything, no need to subtract anything. And then hold space for others to do the exact same thing as they are. And if alleviating suffering is a practice, is a thing that really can exist, which I believe it can because I have experienced it, it requires a commitment to doing just that. Accept yourself, love yourself, know yourself, and hold space for others to share such experience. So as I am here right now, moving through my own pain, and I imagine you are all moving through whatever you may be struggling with, my hope is that the practice will be to continue breathing, to continue to allow yourself to feel whatever you are feeling, to know that your feelings matter. Connect to those that can hold space for you, to love on you in the ways that you need at that moment, and which can also mean to get away from you if that is what you need. And whenever you're ready or desire to also hold space for others, to do just that. And I think that is love. That is love. And if we can do that, it brings much joy to my heart to even begin to imagine what kind of communities and families and relationships we can create. I hope this conversation has been helpful for you, this talk. If you need any support from me, you can always reach out to me, primarily on Facebook, where my name is Bodhi Kokyu, and on Instagram, where my name is also Bodhi Kokyu. I love you, and if I can support you in any way, please reach out to me. Peace and love.
Zona 9-4.